This is PCO, the French Canadian Frankenstein, and you're listening to Count It Out.
Listening to Count It Out with Mike and Tyler.
Well, Canada, and we are live, pals. Welcome to the Bill After Seal of Approved Count It Out with Mike and Tyler. Tyler, for the second year in a row, decided that I am the better man when it comes to Canada Day lists and has not been anywhere to be found. He is gone. So once again, for the second year in a row, I have replaced the man. But this year, is a man no slouch at all to our Canada Day lists. Mr. Adam Contant, you've been here. Is this your third Canada Day list?
I believe it is my third. Yeah,
I think you might be tied with Tyler now.
Just call me Lance Storm.
Phenomenal. So thank you so much for being here, man. What's new in your neck of the woods? What's going on with you?
I mean, just the typical stuff, man. Enjoying my work with Rock Solid Wrestling. I would encourage all of your listeners and viewers on YouTube to give us our own look-see on YouTube, as well as check out our fan club. For just $5 a month, you get access to our complete on-demand library. And of course, we have some great merchandise, which you can get in Canadian colors over at rocksolidgear.ca. And of course, everything Rock Solid Wrestling related can be found on our official website, rocksolidpro.ca. Okay, there. I think I've shilled enough for to get things started and get it out of the way, but that's what's going on with me in the world of professional wrestling anyway.
Well, let's not get rid of Rock Solid for a second, because I have a question for you.
Sure.
A little later on in the show, we're going to hit the list. This year's Canada Day list. There's the top 7 venues in Canadian wrestling. The buildings, the places that made Canadian wrestling so special. But before we get to that list, I want to talk to you about venues for a second. You've been traveling all over this amazing province with Rock Solid for a couple of years now. Do you have any venues or cities or buildings or crowds that stand out to your mind when you think of the best venues in Rock Solid history?
I'm a little biased, but I think one of the things that makes working with Rock Solid Wrestling so special is that there are little unique factors for every venue and crowd that we visit that make them special in their own way. For example, I don't think you get a more passionate crowd than the folks that come to see us in Timmins.
Okay.
They're incredibly loyal. They're very loud. They're hot from start to finish. But at the same time, I think that I don't find that there's a more passionate crowd than the ones we get in Angus, Ontario, hundreds of miles away.
Yeah.
But there's something about that crowd. They're so fired up about it that it doesn't compare to anyone. Then at the same time, Collingwood tends to be our biggest crowd of the year. And there's something about having that curling club filled to the brim with people all sounding like 2,000 plus in there that you just can't replicate. And of course, I would not be, I think I would be remiss if I didn't talk about how much I love working Kirkland Lake, because that's a town that's near and dear to my heart. I was born there. I grew up there.
That was going to be my next question. Is that what you consider to be your hometown venue? Because I know you've lived in different places. When I met you, you were living in Hellebury, Ontario, or Cobalt, in that area, in the new Liskeard area. Anyways, the Temiskaming Shores area. And to my knowledge, Rock Solid doesn't work that territory very often. So if you don't count that, are you counting Kirkland Lake as your hometown territory?
I'll say that it has a very special place in my heart, and I feel like if I was to have a home turf in Rock Solid, that's got to be it. Simply just because of the connections, not to mention the familial bond that I have with both the people there and our charity that we work for every year at Community Living. A lot of people know my Uncle Raymond was a client at Community Living for pretty much his entire life. So the bonds that I have with that particular charity, they run deep, so to speak. But honestly, cheesy as it sounds, every one of these venues and locales feel like home. I do want to say, I would feel a little remiss if I didn't give a special shout out to this year's crop of fans who showed up to our Bracebridge event on March 29th, which was in the middle of the ice storms. There was power was being knocked out throughout the entire city, and these fans still showed up. I was getting messages all day long asking if the show was still going to happen because everywhere else in the city the power was out, but the wrestling gods, they took pity on us, and we had power the entire night, and we still put on a great show. And to those fans that came out, as I said, when I welcomed them to the show, you the real ones, if I may steal a line from the great Chris Van Vliet. They were the real ones on that night.
The wrestling gods, I believe that's JBL and Moose, looking down on you that day. You know what? I guess I have a soft spot in my heart for Kirkland Lake as well when it comes to wrestling, because my very first wrestling show that I worked not as a fan, that I actually went and helped out and did things, and I actually broke my referee cherry that day, was a PWA show, damn near to 20 years ago in Kirkland Lake. So I have great memories of Kirkland Lake as a wrestling town as well. I hope to get back there one day, hopefully to see a Rock Solid show.
But one place that I've never worked, Michael, is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And I thought I would just bring that up because it might be a little topical, or it may not be topical by the time the episode hits. This is the thing, right? When you're working on a time delay, sometimes the stuff you want to talk about may not even be relevant by the time it comes out. But as of this recording, it's very relevant. So I thought
very relevant indeed. As we're recording, Night of Champions happened less than or just over 24 hours ago, and yes, there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot to talk about. I'm glad that we're doing this today while it's still fresh in our minds, because I do want to talk about everything that happened on that show, because it's not only, it's almost a two for these years, because you have your Night of Champions pay-per-view. You have everything we have to talk about the John Cena CM Punk stuff, but it also acts as your King of the Ring pay-per-view, which we don't get anymore, so it's kind of fit right in there. So we have a whole lot to talk about, and that's where I want to start. I want to start with the King of the Ring / Queen of the Ring. For the second year in a row, we find Randy Orton in the finals of the King of the Ring tournament, and for the second year in a row, I think we find the finals of the King of the Ring tournament as one of the best matches of the year. Thank you to Randy Orton. What were your thoughts on the match and on our new king, Mr. Cody Rhodes?
My thoughts are few, but I'll say this: I liked the match quite a bit. I think that it lived up to the expectations that I had for this contest, which was highly anticipated by myself.
Absolutely.
I think the finish was very interesting and maybe telling.
Yeah.
Especially given some of Cody's comments earlier in the week. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, but that's what I was left seeing. And also, I think a great promo from Cody after the match.
And that's where it gets a little bit more telling. While he's doing that promo, cameras were a little bit on Randy, and Randy's facial expressions were kind of telling their own story too. So there's a lot of places they can go. And here's the thing. I don't care what anybody else has been saying lately. My stance on the current creative team and Triple H's booking style is as predictable as it has been. It's also been very unpredictable. There's been many times where I'm like, okay, I see where they're going. This is what they're going to do. And that's not what they do. Right now, yes. Does it look like we're going to get a heel turn from Randy Orton any second now? Yeah, that's what it looks like. And when it doesn't happen, fans are going to bitch and whine going, why can tease it if you're not going to give it to us? Meh. Same people that complain that he's too predictable. We just can't please these fans at all. But yes, is that what it looks like right now? 100%. Is that what we're going to get? Who knows? And that's what I love about this right now. We don't know what's going to happen in the next few weeks. What we do know is that Cody Rhodes is going to go on to SummerSlam to face John Cena. Where's Randy going to play in this? Who knows? Where's Seth Rollins going to play in this? Who knows? Where's CM Punk going to play in the whole deal? Who knows? Before we move on to those other gentlemen, while we're talking about the king and queen in the ring, we have to talk about the queen of the ring. Do you think Jade Cargill was the right person to put that crown on?
So before I answer that question, I want to ask, do we want to touch on Cody Rhodes' comments
Sure, go ahead.
earlier in the week?
Yeah.
Because while we're still talking about it.
Yeah, sure.
So what makes...
Remind the folks, yeah.
So if you hadn't seen this yet, those of you that are listening, Cody Rhodes made a very interesting comment in the lead up to the pay-per-view in which he said that he feels, to paraphrase, he feels like his time as a babyface is coming to an end, or his run as a babyface is coming to an end, or something to that ilk. And for him to make those comments and then to win in less than heroic fashion after the match, and to cut a promo that was very clear in his goals of that title is coming back to me and I don't care who's holding it. Well, that's very intriguing to me. And it did get me thinking. Got me thinking. And I may come back to that a little bit later if we want to maybe do some armchair booking a little bit later after we've talked about the card as a whole. Because my mind's gone a few places with this. If they end up pulling the trigger, which I don't know, maybe they could. Again, a year or two ago, I would have agreed that there's no way that they would be considering turning Cody Rhodes heel. But as you've talked about, and as we've said several times this year, big swings from WWE Creative this year. So who knows what could happen? Anything is possible.
You're 100% right. And 2 years ago, I would have said that they'd be dumb to turn Cody heel right now. There's no reason to turn him heel. You still need your big baby face. He's still the biggest baby face in the company. Why would you ruin that? But I was wrong about the John Cena heel turn. I was wrong about the several things they've done so far. So you know what? And I'll eat crow right now. I was wrong about Naomi. I said Naomi would never be where she is right now, that she would never be more than a lower mid-card wrestler, because I didn't see the big star in her. And look where we are now. So I can admit when I'm wrong, and I might be wrong here. Maybe turning Cody heel is the way to go. There's only one way to find out, and that's just to keep watching, I guess.
All right, now we can move on to the queen of the ring and
all right.
Jade Cargill versus Asuka.
Yeah.
If you have any thoughts about the match and you want to start things off, feel free and go right ahead.
The match was just as good as I expected. There's nothing much more to say about it. I don't think it's winning any Match of the Year awards, but it's definitely exactly what I would have wanted to see from these two women. Asuka is just one of the best in the world, and I've been saying that for years. I'm not the only one. I don't think it's any secret that, everybody considers Asuka to be one of the greatest female performers in wrestling of the last decade or two. Jade Cargill still, to me, has a little bit of, I don't know. She's not in that conversation for me yet. I wasn't a big fan of her in AEW. I understand she's got the look, she's got something about her that you're like, hey, you look at her and you say, hey, she's going to be a star. And I still look at her and say, she's going to be a star. That, I don't know if that's a problem, that she's this far in her career and I'm still saying she's going to be a star. I don't see the full star in her yet, which is why I think it was the right move to put Queen of the Ring on her. Because look how many stars were made by that crown. Steve Austin wasn't the man when he won that crown. Neither was Triple H. A lot of people win that crown before they get their big major push. So maybe this is what Jade Cargill needs to elevate her. For me, anyways. I know a lot of people don't think she needs any elevation. A lot of people think she's already there. Going from where I'm sitting right now, I haven't seen, the only time I've ever looked at her and been like, holy shit, yes, 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 was that Elimination Chamber when she came out and just mauled Naomi and did what she did that night. She felt like a star that night. But that was an isolated incident for me personally.
Allowing myself to play devil's
Of
advocate for a
course.
moment, Steve Austin, Triple H, even Bret Hart did not have a championship match at the next biggest pay-per-view lined up with their victories as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm only saying this to say, would you maybe reconsider if Jade Cargill was the right person to win that match based on what's going to be the better SummerSlam match against Tiffany Stratton? Is it Jade Cargill or is it Asuka? And I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying, what is the better match for SummerSlam? What's good do you think is going to draw the most attention?
I mean, the answer will always be Asuka for me when you're asking what the better match is going to be, and I don't care who the opponent is. If
Well, I'm
Asuka's
not
in the
asking about
if
bell to
Asuka's in the
bell.
equation,
I'm
right?
asking you about what's the more intriguing matchup,
Right now, I think it might be Jake Cargill.
and why
I
do you think that is?
because I think she's still somebody that people are watching to see what they're going to do. We've seen Asuka. There's no question about Asuka anymore. There's no, what can she do? What will she do? I don't think Asuka has anything else she can really prove to us as fans. But when you are building yourself to a title shot at the second biggest pay-per-view of the year, you want to see, you want questions answered. You want to feel like there might be, I'm not going to call her an underdog by any means, but you want to feel like somebody is scraping from underneath. Asuka's not scraping from underneath at all. And has not been for a while and will not again. Even with her physical stature and her everything, her look and everything, she is somewhat of the underdog right now because she's still somewhat new to the company. She spent a lot of time out. She's now beating herself back up from this story from Naomi. I think she's still, and I keep coming back to this word underdog, and I don't mean that in a she's weaker than Tiffany by any means, but from a character standpoint, Tiffany is the champion, and Jade needs to prove herself to get to that point. So I think it's a more interesting story right now to get there.
Now, just to prove that I am only playing devil's advocate, I do agree with you, but I agree with you for a reason that you haven't mentioned. And I think Jade Cargill is the more interesting opponent for Tiffany Stratton at SummerSlam, but I think the major reason has nothing to do with Tiffany Stratton. Um, and it's all to do with someone we've already mentioned, which is Naomi.
Mm-hmm.
I can absolutely see a situation where Jade Cargill defeats Tiffany and then gets cashed in by Naomi,
Yeah.
continuing their rivalry. I think that story is more interesting than anything Jade Cargill and Tiffany Stratton. Unfortunately, I don't, unless they do some real good work in the next couple weeks, I don't think either of those matchups, Asuka or Cargill versus Stratton, has enough juice to really interest me. I think the person that's going to make this interesting is Naomi.
Yes, no man, and you're not wrong at all.
And I don't
But
want that to take away from Jade Cargill and her victory. It's a huge victory for her. And to quickly go back to something you had said previously, she has a lot going for her. And I think that one of the things that she has is presence. And when you talk about the kind of impact a superstar can make with presence, I want to use a little personal anecdote here to demonstrate that. I had some family visiting me this weekend, including my soon to be 6-year old niece. And I had the pay-per-view on, and when Asuka and Jade Cargill were in the ring, she was mesmerized, particularly by Jade Cargill. And she just couldn't stop talking about, oh my God, she's so pretty. Oh my God, she's so strong. Oh my God, I hope she wins. And That, ladies and gentlemen,
And that's
is
what
an
it's all
X
about.
factor and an
Yes.
intangible that you just can't,
Yes. And
you can.
that's
And she didn't care how smooth she looked. She didn't care that Jade wasn't polished. She just said, "Oh my God, she's strong. Oh my God, she's pretty.
yeah.
Oh my God, I want to be like her."
100%. And that's the things I try to look for right now in wrestling as well. When I show my soon to be 7-year old son wrestling, I look to see who is he drawn to, and bringing him to the elimination chamber was big because I got to see who he got excited for when they came out. And you know who it was? One of them was Bianca. Surprise, surprise. One of them was Alexa Bliss. Surprise, surprise. But it shows to me that, you know, WWE really does know what their fans want. They really does know what their demographic wants. What we as fans just need to start wrapping our minds around is we're not the fucking demographic. You 44-year-old men sitting behind your fucking keyboards, you're not the ones that WWE is going to be listening to. You're not the ones they're going after. WWE has been and will always be for the kids. And that's what it is right now. And this is what I love. And this is, you know, Jade is going to be a huge star. And you just proved to me that because a 6-year-old girl looked at her and said, that's who I want to see on my television. And then my whole theory gets thrown out the window when my son tells me that his current favorite wrestler is Curtis Hughes. So I don't know what the hell I'm talking about half the time.
He had his fans, man. Don't doubt him. Also, I'm going to give Jade extra props for a near perfect Storm from X-Men cosplay.
Right.
Damn. If that was not just the best way to take the whole outfit situation with the women in Saudi Arabia and make it a positive talking point, just chef's kiss. Well done, girl.
I hope that we're at the point now where people are just like, listen, we're at a point now we don't have to talk about the outfits. We don't have to. You talk about, oh, they have to be covered from head to toe, blah 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 blah. This is now at a point where WWE is just trying to respect this culture's rules and what they do. Whether or not we agree with it or it's something that we do, that's out of it right now. They're going to a different country and respecting that culture. So it was a talking point years ago, but now I hope it's not so much a talking point anymore.
Well, I'd like to talk about it. I'd like to talk about Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Rodriguez, aka Leathermania, with Roxanne Perez.
You just took it all from my mouth because this is where I was going with this. I like the fact that these women have taken the situation and they're making it their own.
They're owning it.
These costumes, if you look at Rhea's amazing costume from SmackDown, she looked like fucking Vecna from Stranger Things. I'm not sure that's what she was going for, but it looked amazing. But then
wait a minute, she looked like who?
Vecna from Stranger Things.
Gesundheit.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Moving on. Then you get to the pay-per-view. I was hoping she was gonna do that outfit again or do a play on it. But like you said, they came out in almost identical outfits.
And then Perez came out in something identical too.
Yeah. I didn't understand that at all.
Don't get me wrong. I wasn't mad about it. Some might even go so far as to say I enjoyed what I was watching on my television screen. But the nerdy wrestling fan in me was like, come on, guys. You didn't talk about this before you went out there. Unless this is just some weird elaborate rib. Like them all going, it would be funny.
Yeah. I did enjoy I think it was Roxanne's. That hers was just a little bit different because it looked like she had barbed wire around. I liked it. I thought that was a cool touch.
And Rhea had pumpkins and Raquel had something else. They were all, those little versions of those Crocs stickers or whatever, the buttons. Right. It's all the same Crocs, but they've all got buttons to make it more personalized, so to speak. Okay, but weird outfit decisions aside, let's talk about the street fight itself, because I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I thought these two ladies were very creative in what they could do that was not going to be similar to other stuff that they had maybe seen just the night before,
Sure.
on SmackDown,
Yeah.
but also in what they were doing. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Both women delivered. I had higher expectations for this match just because I know what these two are capable
Yes.
of based on their history in NXT. I thought Raquel Rodriguez was the MVP of the night.
Okay.
She made Rhea look incredible in that match and also stood out as a menace. I hope that this summer is the start of bigger things for Raquel Rodriguez. Big
I don't know
Mommy
how it couldn't
Cool.
be. Yeah.
Big Mommy Cool gets a huge thumbs up from me. I thought she stole the show. Honestly, I thought she did incredible. I love the spot where they tied her up and they beat her with the kendo sticks.
Right.
The
Yeah.
spots with the stairs were really inventive. I got real nervous when they put the table up on those ropes and they were shaking quite a bit, and I was like, "Oh Lord, did they practice this beforehand?" But they
Yeah.
pulled it off. At the end of the day, they pulled it off. Yeah, man,
I
great
enjoyed
match.
it as well. I enjoyed it as well. And I'm really excited about the future of the women's division in WWE right now, because you have your standouts. Tyler and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, where you still have your let's call them your veterans, I guess, and your Rhea Ripleys and your Baileys and the people that have been holding it down for the last 10 years. But the future looks so bright right now with your Roxanne Perez's, with your Raquel's. A personal favorite of mine right now is Julia. I'm so excited to see what her future is going to look like in the next 5 years. The women's division, I think, is the brightest it looked in since that original bunch came from NXT years ago. I'm very excited about women's wrestling in general right now.
Where do you think the two women in this street fight go from here? Because I think that we've talked about Raquel. I think obviously the next step is for her to do their version of a love triangle between her,
I
Roxanne, and Liv Morgan. I think
Yeah,
that absolutely is the next step for them. And I personally think we're headed towards an Io Sky Rhea Ripley match for Perth. I can't see them doing anything but having Rhea get her big win back and her big victory. She gets the belt back in Australia as a
mhm.
thank you for all the hard work that she's done and carrying the division for so long. Um, I did not realize, and this is, I think, another great point of how commentary is important. I did not realize how much Rhea had lost this year until commentary brought it up. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, oh my God, they're right. Rhea really hasn't won a lot this year.
And how
And
much has it hurt her character?
oh, not at all.
Exactly.
But the fact that I couldn't even remember that goes to
And
show that.
but
But
that's
it makes a good story
it,
that,
it
hey,
makes it
listen,
makes a phenomenal story, but it
I
also
haven't won in a
shows.
while, but now I'm climbing that ladder back.
Yeah,
And by the time we get to Perth, which is towards the end of the year, she'll have gotten enough wins or earned a reputation back, whatever, that she'll be ready for that showdown with Io Sky, and it'll mean a lot.
but I think it's a testament to how good of a character Rhea is, that she can go and lose that much and nobody gives a shit. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's they're especially with your fickle fans right now that are so quick to jump on who's burying who and who's, you know what I mean? Usually they'd be like, "Oh, they're burying Rhea. Rhea sucks now." No one's talking like that because she's so good that nobody cares that she's losing.
Well,
That's a
she has
big
a
testament to her
connection.
hard work.
She connects with the fans. That's the thing. Like, she makes them care about her.
Mhm.
And that's really what it's all about. Because when they care about you, they react to you, whether it's good or bad. And she's got that. The fans, they 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 connect with her. Yeah.
Before we move on to the main event situation, you brought up the love triangle situation. You have Liv involved in there when she gets back from injury, and the other two girls as well. Where does Dom fit in all this, though? What do you do with Dominic Mysterio moving forward, where the fans want him to become a face sooner than later? What do you do with him with these women in this situation?
I put him in the background. Dominic Mysterio does not need to be involved at the forefront of this feud.
Okay.
I can see him flirting a little bit with Roxanne if they want to do that. but the jealousy angle is not going to be about Dominic Mysterio. And, or at least I don't think it should be,
Okay.
because they just did that last year.
Yeah.
It's too early to rehash it. The jealousy is going to come from Raquel and Liv and Roxanne stepping in and saying, like, they might even do it. Like, honestly, what I would do is I would say Adam Pearce comes to Raquel and says, I got to take your belts. Liv's out. She's not going to be able to defend them. And Raquel goes, what if I can find a replacement? And Adam goes, okay. Walks in Roxanne. She gets one half of the belts without even having to try. And now they're a tag team and they're doing really well. Then when Liv comes back, then it becomes a test of loyalty for Raquel. Who do you go with?
Yeah.
Who is it with? Dom, he's going to be busy doing his own thing, with the Intercontinental Championship. I think that everything they've been doing with Dom is the right thing. They've had him go up against very popular baby faces to try and hold off on that inevitable babyface turn as long as they can. And also putting him in there with highly athletic guys so that they can show off how good of a performer he is,
Yes.
so that they can also turn him babyface. Like,
Yeah.
it's very incremental what they're doing, but
Yeah.
they're like, we want to show you that he can hang. We want to show off how athletic he is so that subconsciously you're going to start to love him. All you people who still don't love him yet, you're going to subconsciously start to love him, because you're going to start to go, man, that guy can go. Oh man, look at him hang with Penta. Oh my God, he's going toe to toe with AJ Styles. I kind of respect this dude. So that down the line, when they're ready to pull the trigger on it full force, he's good to go.
And that's going to work
smart with him. And I want them to keep doing that.
That's going to work in the favor as well of somebody like Logan Paul down the road, when, if they ever decide to try to turn him face, he's going to be a tough nut to crack because people have personal opinions on him. But if you can break through that personal opinion and just respect the work he's doing, he'll be an easy face turn. And I think the same can be said about Dom, where people don't necessarily have personal opinions about him, but they didn't want him to succeed. They just saw him as Ray's green son, that they're like, oh, he's a Nepo baby. He's only here because his dad's who he is. And then he took years to prove in both his ring work and his character work that he does deserve your respect, and he does deserve to be cheered, and he deserves the spot he's in right now. So I think a face turn for Dom is going to be such a sign of success for both Dom and the WWE.
I have a kind of hot take on Logan Paul.
Okay.
I don't think people hate him as much as they say they do.
I mean, when he first got signed, I was very against it. I hated the guy. Because to me, the guy was that guy who desecrated that Japanese forest. And he's the guy who has said and done all these awful things online. That's all I saw. Now I try to see him through the eyes of a wrestling fan and just being like, hey, look what he's doing for this company and for this business. I have to respect that.
He's definitely made some mistakes, and he absolutely can rub people the wrong way. However, I think a lot of people forget that Logan Paul was brought in as a babyface, and he did well to get over with people when he first was brought in. And I think here's my theory about this, if I may. Logan Paul is a modern American dream success story. He was some kid in his basement putting videos on YouTube, and him and his brother became millionaires and entrepreneurs and pop culture icons. And studies have been done that show that the youth of America, the number one job that the youth of America want is YouTuber or influencer. This is a guy that is, again, the modern American dream, comes from nothing, gains millions of followers and fame and fortune. Who doesn't want that story? I think that the reason it's easy to hate Jake Paul is that he doesn't act humble. He acts like he's entitled to it and that he deserves all this, and he's not grateful for it.
I mean, I wouldn't go as far. I agree with everything you're saying.
I don't think that's who he is, really. I think it's a facade that he's putting on. So here's my hot take, is that I think it would be a lot easier to turn Logan Paul than people think, because all he has to do is say, oh, you know what? I've seen the error of my ways. I really do appreciate all this stuff. And again, like if I'm WWE, that is exactly how I promote him, is like, this dude is the modern American dream. He's a guy that came from nothing and he made himself a star. And you can be a star too. I'm proof of it because I was just some kid who did it.
Now,
I
with
think
that,
it's really easy to turn that story into something positive.
I agree with a lot of your saying, except for maybe the come for nothing part. Remember, he's an actor on the Disney Channel.
You know what? That doesn't matter. Listen, self-made is a myth, but it's a myth that we all believe.
Right.
So it is not that difficult for them to spin the story that way. And again, this is how a lot of people saw him when he first was brought into WWE. Like a lot of people forget that originally he was teaming, I think, with The Miz, and they were baby faces when they first came in, if I'm not mistaken.
You might be right.
And then he got turned on almost immediately.
Yeah.
So I mean, so that's my thing, is that Logan Paul is great at what he does, is playing the heel. I don't think the audience hates him as much as they let on.
No,
that's my hot take.
Because I talked to like our very close friend Matthew Suckram seems to think that he's got legitimate forever Xbox heat, and I don't agree with that. I don't think what he has is real go away heat. I think he has the heat that he's built for himself, and WWE will be able to turn that around for him. He's got the right kind of heat as far as I'm concerned.
People still want to see him get his ass kicked.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure
that's
what a heel's job is, right? You're right,
yes.
Exactly. All right.
Sorry for the detour.
No, that's fine. Before we get on the list, we do have one more thing to talk about, and we are going to talk about the John Cena CM Punk story.
I hate to interrupt again.
Yes.
Do we want to talk about Sami Zayn carrying Cross?
Sure, if you'd like to talk about it. Yeah.
Just real quick.
Actually, you know what? I do want to talk about it because I have a little bit of a
You know
segue.
what? Fuck you. Yeah, I do have a lot to say about
No, because it does make me think of a little bit of segue that I want to go on because I don't get to talk to you often about this stuff.
You know what?
You are the man I want to talk to.
You remind me of this meme I've seen recently where it's a cartoon of two cats and they're sitting there cuddling and one says to the other, I love you so much. And then in the next panel, the cat's got his fist up. He goes, you know what? On second thought. And that was you in that moment.
Yeah, it sounds about right. First of all, I think it's great that Karrion Kross finally got his big pay-per-view moment or PLE moment. They're putting a lot on this.
Stop. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Did we forget that this guy was part of WrestleMania last year?
I think we're supposed to forget that.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like this whole narrative, like, oh, the guy doesn't get. Guys, he was part of WrestleMania last year. It's not like the guy's been forgotten about. Like, yes, and I get it. It's a well-constructed, like, people are mad that he's on main event every week. Guys, it's part of the story.
Yeah.
Part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
He's eating people up on main event every week, and there's a reason for that, guys.
This is the greatest WWE produced, fan-made superstar we're ever going to see. They want you so badly to think that you did this, that you, as the fans, made Karrion Kross the way that you made Daniel Bryan and the way, all that stuff. They want you to feel this. Anybody who thinks for even a second that this is 100% fabricated by Triple H, you're fucking high. Half the stuff that he's gone on and said in interviews and stuff like that, you think that they would let him get away with half that shit if he wasn't being told to say it? Come on now. Now, does that make it any less entertaining or any less great? No, I love it. I love everything he's doing. I've always been a fan of Kross. I right back to his TNA days. I loved him in TNA. I love him here. Before we move on to the match, that leads me to a question for you. We're going to go in a bit of a segue. Because you are one of the biggest TNA fans that I know, I want to talk about Scarlett Bordeaux for a second.
Okay.
You go back to TNA, and I absolutely fell in love with Scarlett in TNA. The character work she did, the in-ring work she did, a lot of the stories that they were telling her with Scarlett, I thought were phenomenal. Somebody who has watched her entire career in TNA, do you feel like we are not getting anything from her in WWE. I feel like we could be getting so much more because we as TNA fans know what she's capable of, and I feel like we're getting none of it. Am I over exaggerating there? Because that's how I feel.
I think we're getting what we need out of her.
You think so? Yeah.
I think she's great for Karrion's entrance and his aura. I think at this moment in time, she is exactly what she needs to be.
Okay.
I don't think that having her be more involved in his matches does anything but take away from Karrion Kross. And right now, the focus is supposed to be on him, and you don't want a Sable situation.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's what will happen. I'm saying better to eliminate the chance of it happening when you're trying to put over Kross.
Right.
So
Okay.
I think that's a big reason why we didn't see her do anything against Sami Zayn. And there was ample opportunity. They set it up, but all she did was talk smack. And maybe that's all she needs to be. Honestly, I would probably say the best one-to-one comparison right now is Miss Elizabeth and Savage. Elizabeth didn't do anything. She didn't need to. She was a symbol. She represented something.
And I think I would be 100% on board with this, 100% in agreement with you. If every time I saw her, I didn't think of the good things that I remember seeing her do and wish I got more of that. But you're right. Maybe if I want that, I can just go back and watch it on the TNA network. So what you're saying is WWE shouldn't be bringing in Falabal to do some programs?
No, I'm always in favor of any company bringing in Falaba. I love that guy.
Her work with him was tremendous. I love that.
I miss him.
That.
He's phenomenal.
Yes.
I miss him. He's great.
I don't even know what he's doing right now. If he's working anywhere, I'm not sure.
Hopefully listening to this.
So what do you think? I do, but do you think it was a right move or the good move to put Sammy over in this match?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I don't think it hurts Karrion's push at all. I think it was right for what they did. And then bringing in Sammy later on in the night to face off against Paul Heyman's cronies, or not, sorry, against it was against Paul Heyman's cronies. Had he lost to Karrion, that it wouldn't have as much effect when he came out later. So I do think they did that match very well, and Sammy going over was the right move.
Plus, also, it proves Karrion is a hypocrite and wrong, and he's the heel. Yeah, and he should be proven wrong in a one-on-one straight-up competition. Look, maybe call me boring and old-fashioned, but yeah, the babyface should win in that competition because
I agree.
He has to prove that he is right. At the end of the day, the babyface is right. And that's what we got. And that's what we should have got. So, and that continues to tell Karrion's story too. So yeah, exactly. It was great. Yeah. It was a good little match. The crowd was super hot for Sammy. It was wonderful. Yeah. It was a real feel-good moment. So, I love the finish. I love the finish too. The great out of nowhere finish. It was great. Loved it.
That was, at first, right before the finish, I was starting to question the commentary's choices when they were saying, because he hit him with a blue thunder bomb, and then he's I believe it was Michael Cole said that's the move that almost beat whoever he faced in the King of the Ring tournament. I forget who it was.
Randy Orton.
Was it Randy Orton? He says that move almost beat Randy Orton, and then now it almost beat Karrion Kross. What are you doing? By just Sammy's the guy who almost does things. What are you doing here with this commentary? 5 seconds later, he hits it with the Helluva kick, and we're done. I'm like, okay. So now we're just not supposed to pay attention to the Blue Thunder Bomb as his finisher because the Helluva kick is the fucking that's the nail in the coffin. So I'm okay with it now as long as we move forward now. Going the Helluva kick is where it's at. Blue Thunder Bomb maybe doesn't get the job done.
I have a question for you. Do you feel like Karrion Kross bumped enough in that match?
Yeah, I mean...
Do you want to know why I'm asking such a ridiculous question?
Yes.
Prior to the pay-per-view, there had been some reports coming out that folks within
Oh,
WWE were
he didn't like.
critical that Karrion Kross didn't bump enough. He would
Yeah,
never be a main event guy because he
specifically that he
didn't
hated
bump.
taking flat back bumps.
First
Yeah,
of all, yeah, back bumps hurt. They
yeah.
suck. Anyone who nobody
Anybody who
wants
comes out and
nobody wants
says
to
they
bump
like them
more.
is a fucking liar. No, that's
I
ridiculous.
I had to laugh. That made me chuckle so much. Like, this is internet
Any
journalism
wrestler
at its
worth their
finest,
salt,
man.
any wrestler worth their salt will tell you the least amount of times you have to bump is the amount of times you should bump.
Yeah.
Look at one of my favorite Honky Tonk Man stories is when a guy comes over and says, "Hey, I was hoping to do this spot." He says, "You got 3 bumps, motherfucker. Use them right."
That's pretty good. But it loses a point because there's no sandwiches involved.
If you don't think he was eating a sandwich while saying that.
No, that's a joke for 4 people. I have to include that in every appearance on the show. I have to include a joke for only 4 people.
Well, that works
and
for me.
that was my one.
All right, moving on. Before we get to the actual match of CM Punk versus John Cena, I want to go back a couple weeks because we saw 2 of the best promos moving into this match that I can remember in recent memory. We already talked about it last week on the show, but I want to talk to you about it as well. I want to hit on John Cena's so-called pipe bomb. I like the fact that both these promos, were switched. First, John Cena stole his promo, and then the next week, CM Punk goes and does the same thing. I thought it was great storytelling. I really enjoyed this coming into Night of Champions. What are your thoughts on both these promos?
I like the John Cena quote unquote pipe bomb promo.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it's stupid. I thought it was stupid back then, and I think it's stupid now that Cena and Punk were both laid out for that long while the diatribe went on and on and on forever.
Sure.
But that's such a minor nitpick. That's just being stupid nitpicky wrestling.
And apparently even Triple H was starting to think that too. And that's why he sent a referee out during it to check on Punk for that for that purpose.
That's ridiculous. I like the shout outs to Matt Cardona and Nick Nemeth. That's fun little banter.
And the fact that Matt Cardona did the most Matt Cardona thing possible and just ran with it for a week.
Yeah.
I love that.
I did not like CM Punk.
You did not enjoy the what was it? The Doctor of Punkonomics? I loved it. I personally absolutely loved it.
I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
And I get why they did it.
Listen, I'll cheer anytime I get to hear that theme music. I'm a happy camper.
And I get why fans liked it. Here's my take on it. Here's my 2 cents why I did not like it. That sort of thing works for an out of touch heel like John Cena because it's petty for him to say, "This is stuck in my craw since 2011. You hurt my feelings back then with your words. So now I'm going to do the same thing to you and see how you like it." The imitation shtick. I saw Punk in that and he looked ridiculous. And I was just like,
he did.
Okay, this is going to sound, look, I know how this is going to sound, but this is how I felt. 2011 CM Punk would have kicked that CM Punk in the head for it felt like such the wrong move for that character.
But is this any different than the time he did it to Jeff Hardy?
Yes, because he was a heel doing it.
Yeah.
He was doing it as mockery and again in a petty way. This is the kind of thing that seemed beneath CM Punk. And I don't just mean him, the character. I mean as the triumphant babyface. I would have much preferred if Punk came out and said, I could have done that. But you know what? I don't need to mock you. You made a fool of yourself last week by just rehashing something I did that was famous. You had to make headlines by copying me. Well, once again, I'm going to change the culture by doing something of my own, which is kick your ass. I did it in 2011, and I'm going to do the same thing to you tomorrow night. To me, that's way more heroic than coming out there and saying, "Look at me, I'm making fun of you now," because then it just feels like a high school squabble to me.
Yeah, it definitely does.
That's
I
my
don't
take on it. Was I didn't look. I understand why you got to have the story that they're telling is duality, right?
know.
They're doing the
Yeah.
George Lucas. Oh, it's like poetry. That's what they're doing. I get it. So they have to do the yin and yang. So one guy does it, the other guy's got to do his version. I understand. I understand.
I'm going to be asking
It
you to do
didn't.
your.
It. What's that?
I'm going to be asking you to do a George Lucas impression every time you come on the show from now on. I hope you understand that.
Korean Cross doesn't like to bump. Uh, but it did not work. The Punk part of it did not work for me. The Cena part absolutely
Sure.
did. Was thumbs up. The Punk one thumbs
See,
down.
I think what worked for me, the reason it worked for me so well was less CM Punk's delivery and more John Cena's selling of the delivery. That rattled him. You look at his face during that whole thing, and every time he hit a punchline, it dug another knife into John Cena's heart. And every time you would see his face, he would look like he was trying to think of a comeback. He was about to come back, and then Punk would hit him again, and it would knock him down. His facial expressions and his selling through that whole promo is what did it for me. I loved John's work in this entire build, to be honest.
They made the best of what they were working with, without
Hmm.
question. And you wouldn't expect any less from these two guys. But did it pay off in the long run, Michael? Was
Uh-huh.
all the promos and the dress up and the imitation games all worth it for the main event that we got at Night of Champions? Is
I
the
think
question.
so. I think the match was exactly what we needed it to be. Um, I was not expecting the involvement of Seth Rollins, and then I wasn't expecting the involvement to turn into what it turned into. Um, it almost got a little bit too confusing for me, but they saved it. They pulled it back, and things got good. Then they went and did the hug spot, and when they did the hug spot, my first reaction, I thought about you right away because I know how much you hate those spots when during, especially during a blood feud, when the heel go allows a hug. So when the hug happened, I was like, what the fuck are they doing now? But then when he had that face on it, I'm like, okay, they're gonna fix this. We're gonna save this. With Rollins once again, we're kind of going back to Elimination Chamber here. Once again, a curb stomp from Rollins gets John Cena the win. Where do we go from here? I liked it. I like the finish. I liked everything about the match. My question is, where are we going to go from here? Because his next opponent is Cody Rhodes. He's not even in this equation.
Well, I think the next stop should be Saturday night's main event: John Cena versus Charles Robinson, Hell in a Cell. Clearly, I mean, look,
Love that.
I said that Raquel Rodriguez was the
That
MVP,
when
but
he's
man, oh man, Charles Robinson
I
was a
love that.
close second.
He's running down and fucking John just nails him. That's one of my favorite parts of the whole pay-per-view.
It was so good.
And then
Like not
his
just because like it was just an amazing impact, but just
yeah.
like I have thoughts. I have thoughts on this match. So like whenever you want,
Go
I'll just
go for it,
vomit
please.
them.
Tell me your thoughts. That's what you're here for.
I did like this match a lot
Me
too,
too.
and I agree. I think it was exactly what it needed to be. I was very satisfied with it at the
Mhm.
end of the day because I think what it did was it allowed both guys to save face while also creating some intriguing places to go. And I think that is the best you could have hoped for this particular PLE. The match itself, good. For the two guys in the stages of their career that
Yeah.
they're at, I think
Mhm.
they did a very good job. So let's break down the chaos. I thought Seth Rollins coming out was a great surprise. I'm sure that there are fans out there much smarter than me that saw it coming, but I was not expecting it.
I I
So,
I wasn't.
so
I
it,
because both Tyler and I had said that we expected him to have for Seth to have his sights on Gunther. I didn't think he'd be putting himself in the Cena situation at all. So this was a surprise to me.
I did think it really added something to the match. I'm a big fan of shtick, so like having more of that Gaga out there I thought just elevated, especially because I think everybody got over by
Mhm.
doing it a little bit more. Um, Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker did a great job as the heavies. Um, Having Penta and Sami Zayn involved, I think, was a smart move, and will
Mhm.
build to some. I'm hoping is planting seeds for something later down the line, which we can talk about if you want this thing to go over 3 hours. Which, oh my God, I'm sorry. Every time I come on the show, I say,
Where you
"Okay, I'm gonna keep it quick and concise this time." Never do. And yet I'm still gonna be talking. I thought that as soon as they hugged, I knew where they were going.
Mhm.
I knew where they were going, and it made me smile. I was like, "Oh, this is great." Um, yeah, man, it's so well. This was such really well planned out chaos. The Charles Robinson thing, and then Cena tackles him was such a great
Yes.
way to get out of the cash in.
Yeah.
The confrontation between Cena.
And
There's so
between Cena
many.
and Rollins, the way he acted towards Rollins was like, "What are you doing?" So it was almost like he felt personally insulted. Not even mad that he was going to catch him. He was insulted that he would even consider to come after him right now. It's like, no, do you know who I am? Not today. We're not doing this. No. I love that. I absolutely love that. It's almost like Cena, just like Tyler and I. Tyler and I thought for sure that Rollins isn't even worried about Cena. He's going to go for well, at the time we thought Jey Uso, but he's going to go over to the Gunther situation. He's going to go over there. It's almost like John Cena thought the same thing. Rollins doesn't want to fuck with me. Rollins isn't gonna. He'll go over there. Rollins wants nothing to do with me. So he was surprised. He was insulted that Rollins would even consider coming down and doing this to him. I love that. This is why we spoke about this last week, that right now John Cena is a front runner for my performer of the year, because everything he's doing right now in and out of the ring, especially out of the ring, with his acting and it's his facial expressions, his emotions. He's emoted more in this storyline than he has in his entire career. And I'm so fucking here for it.
Uh, John Cena is absolutely the star of this match, and this match, I think, look, Seth Rollins and CM Punk are clearly still headed towards a collision course, which I'm happy about. I love that they're continuing this story. I like that it's a long-term thing. But the most interesting aspect of this matchup for me is John Cena, because it raises so many questions about where they're heading with him. He had a moment during the match where he could have used the belt, which he has been doing to win all of his big matches, and he put it down. And that had me go like, okay, maybe they're realizing, or maybe it was the plan all along, or maybe they are realizing and they're changing it up on the fly, but they'll say it was the plan all along. Who knows? That, okay, this whole heel thing maybe isn't going as well as we thought it was, and people are just kind of refusing to boo this guy. Maybe he has Undertaker syndrome, and maybe they're gonna move him slowly back into the babyface column with this. And then they do the handshake thing, and it's like, okay, are they pulling the trigger on this? But then he goes for the kick to the groin, and then he shoves Charles Robinson, and he takes advantage again, and he's like,
Mhm.
nah, I'm still a heel, baby. But the seeds are planted, and it's like, okay, now I'm interested. Now this is interesting to see
Mhm.
where they're taking with this. So, yeah, man, it's really been kicking around in my brain can what they're doing. I now have serious doubts that Cena remains a heel until the end of the year. In fact, if I may make a bold prediction here based on my
Yes.
own, like, oh, this is what I would do. I don't know that John Cena makes it out of SummerSlam as a heel.
See, and I now with everything going on, I, I hope you're wrong. I now think, because my original idea was, okay, this will be short term. They'll turn him back right around the SummerSlam area. But the way this story has been going, it's the last thing I want to see right now. I don't think SummerSlam's the time to do it. But with that said, can Cody lose this match?
No, I don't think
No.
so.
So,
But
so I don't know what.
but I also think by the time SummerSlam is over, Cody Rhodes doesn't leave as a babyface.
Ah, I see. Okay.
So allow me to do my little pitch. Remember, I
Mhm.
said we were going to do some
I
fantasy
do.
booking and it
Yeah.
was going to come back to Cody. Well, here it is. So, based purely on the events of last night, which, by the way, by the time you're listening to this, may have completely blown up and changed. So, I apologize if this is
Well,
only good booking for one night only.
the only thing happening between now and then is a Raw, so we should be good.
But you never know. I imagine we saw the beginnings of a double turn
Mhm.
in Saudi Arabia. We saw Cody be willing to cheat to win because this wasn't a situation where Cody didn't know that the turnbuckle was exposed. He
Yeah.
knew,
Yeah.
and he took advantage of it. And there's a lot of people out there saying like, "Oh, maybe this is Randy looked pissed." Yeah, he looked pissed because Cody cheated. He cheated, and
But at
that's
the
what he's
same,
and
but at the
that's what he's
same
upset about.
time,
He's not mad that he lost. He's mad that he cheated.
but then that's kind of messy storytelling for me because he only cheated because Randy opened that opportunity.
Absolutely.
You know what I
But
mean?
but he can still be upset about it that Cody did it.
Yeah. Well,
May I use the Dark Knight analogy here? You were the best of us.
mhm.
You were supposed to be better than us, and he's cheating. It's not what he's supposed to be.
I mean,
He's the White Knight.
you go back, and the whole reason Cody lost his title in the first place is because he refused to cheat. He wouldn't sell his soul to The Rock, which put him up against Cena in the first place. He wouldn't cheat to beat Cena, which is why he lost the title in the first place. So yes, now he's in a position where
And don't
maybe
forget,
I was wrong. You
his
know.
promo made it sound like I'm willing to do anything to win.
Mhm.
That promo definitely sounded like a man obsessed.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing that I'll say. So this is how I would lay it out. And these are just big broad bullet points, filling in the blanks I haven't gotten to yet. How I would see it is SummerSlam goes down and we see Cena decide that I'm not going to cheat. I'm going to do this the honorably way. But Cody does. He does cheat to win and he wins back the title. And then John Cena, this is going to sound crazy, and I'm sorry, but it is crazy, but this is the way I see it. John Cena disappears. He goes off television. He doesn't come out on Raw. He goes
Now,
home.
Well, remember that we only have we still have 15 appearance dates scheduled.
Yes,
And
I
that
know.
and that's starting now.
Right.
Okay.
And I know that's crazy,
Mhm.
but 15 is not a lot. I
No,
know
it's
it
not.
sounds like a lot, but
Well,
it's
and
not a lot.
I mean, we're only in July,
That's
right?
right. Right. So we get to SummerSlam, which is the like beginning of it, and okay, he goes away. Cody, meanwhile, confirms his major heel turn and is like, "Look, I did everything you asked me to do. I got the belt back. I'm your conquering hero. Why aren't you treating me like the hero I am?" You know, and he goes full Homelander, and becomes a heel. Meantime, Punk and Seth Rollins are still continuing their feud. Nothing gets resolved to them. You know, there was a commercial for a little show that they aired in Saudi Arabia talking about how excited they were to bring War Games to San Diego
Mm.
and their big baseball stadium. And the funny thing is, if you look at the guys who were involved in that main event, well, we had Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, and then we had CM Punk and John Cena and Sami Zayn and Penta. Huh. Those would make some pretty interesting teams if you ask me. But of course,
I
we would
like
need
it.
somebody else on Seth Rollins' team. Boy, howdy. Wouldn't it be interesting if Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes, notorious enemies, finally teamed up
Hmm.
with one another, especially if Seth Rollins is still holding that Mr. Money in the Bank briefcase.
Hmm.
Now you have that, and then on the other side, you've got CM Punk leading his team with Sammy and Penta. He still needs a fourth guy.
Okay, I think we're going in the same direction here because we have a man we haven't talked about yet at all, who is set for a return. Who knows when, right?
See, we are definitely on different pages
Oh,
because
okay.
where I'm going with it is that he says it. He comes out and he says on national TV, he's like, "Look, we haven't seen you in months, but I know you're listening. John, I need you. I know we shared a moment in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, okay.
You
No,
need
sorry.
this."
Sorry, this is CM Punk talking now. In my head, it was
Yeah.
John. It was John
No,
talking.
no,
Okay.
it's Punk leading the team, and we do the whole
Okay.
thing where we don't know if Cena's going to show up. He makes the big return, he gets the big pop. Because I think if you're going to do this, where you make him a babyface again, you got to do a hard reset. You got to
Yeah.
take him off TV for a little while so that people can miss him. And then when he comes back, he's the conquering hero. And then he's like, yeah, it's me and it's you, Punk, or it's me and it's you, Seth Rollins, whatever ends up going for the story to end things in December. And hell, you know what? Let's just go super duper crazy with it. Yeah, let's have him win. Let's have him retire with the belt. But instead of him taking it home, he does the right thing and says, I'm putting the belt down here with my sneakers and I'm leaving it into the hands of the new generation, but that's it for me. I'll
I
go with that. That's
I
my
like
crazy idea
I
based on
like
Saudi
I like
Arabia.
all of that. I do. I really enjoy all of that. One small change that I would like to see made is a man that I think needs to be involved in this situation. I might take Penta out of the situation between now and November, and I think that's where Roman Reigns needs to fit in all this.
So here's my thought about Roman Reigns. If they don't go that direction with it, based on stuff that happened last night and a match we totally forgot about, I could also see them doing another Bloodline one for War Games because now
Yeah. Well, now it,
we have Solo, we have Hikuleo, we have the Tongans, the God, and then on the other side we easily could get Roman, Jacob, and the Usos.
have you seen the announcement of Hikuleo's WWE name?
Yeah, I like it.
Fuck, things are going to get confusing real fast.
No, they're all the
Wait,
Tongans. They're all the Tongans. It's fine.
yeah, because now we got what we got Tangaloa, Tamatonga, and Talatonga,
Yeah.
and I'm guessing it's just because he's really fucking tall, so we're calling him Tala.
Well, it was no different than Braun Strowman. Come on. You're a couple letters off from Braun Strongman. Come on. Same thing. Keep it simple,
I'm
man.
never the guy to complain about them changing names. I really don't care. I think JC Mateo is a great name for Jeff Cobb. I really do. But Tala, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know.
Tala, Tala, Tala. It's easy to chant. I like it.
All right. Do you have anything else we should hit before we get to our Canada Day celebration?
Now we're 6 hours into this podcast.
Yeah,
Let's maybe get into the meat and potatoes of it.
All right. Like I said, we are going to be counting down the top 7 venues in Canadian history. On paper, I think it sounds like maybe a boring list, but I really want to talk. I chose this list because I want to talk about how sometimes a building, a venue, a crowd can be as much a character as anything else in a wrestling show. And we have some goddamn historic buildings in this country. And I want to break them down today. I'm going to start with my number 7 as a cheat code because I could not for the life of me choose my number 7 to the point where I sent I broke it down to 2. I sent it to Tyler and said, which would you choose between these 2? And he said, I don't know. They both kind of suck. I'm like, well, then. In that case, I know exactly where I'm going. I'm going to cheat for my number 7 big time. And for my number 7, I am choosing number 435. No, that's not 435. It's 40035. Blythe Road, Ontario. That's Cowbell Brewery, my friends, which will be the location of the very first ever counted out produced wrestling show ever. Blythe, Ontario, Cowbell Brewery is hosting their very first beer festival, and they have asked Counted Out to provide the entertainment. We will be hosting 3 1-hour wrestling shows through the day. You're going to be seeing some of the greatest talent from not only around Ontario, not only around Canada, but around the world, because we'll have international star, the Australian bombshell Kingsley will be there on the show. We have KPK, we have Fresh Air, we have your boys from over at Rock Solid Wrestling, the Ring Truck Crew.
I wasn't sure if it had been announced yet, but I want to say that as I know those two guys very, very well, they're absolutely worth your money's worth.
And I hope this doesn't deter anybody.
Plus,
but
they'll also set up the ring for you, which is really
well,
nice.
which is exactly what we need. Yeah. And I hope this doesn't deter anybody, but we can announce for sure, 100%, I hope, that this will be the debut on anything that I do ever, because he doesn't listen to my show. Danny Franchise will be at the show. I don't know if anybody told him that I have a podcast, but I have a podcast, and my podcast is producing a show, and he's going to be on it. I don't know how
That's
that
right. Danny Franchise will be serving drinks at the bar.
If I thought for a fact that he could pass his Serve Safe exam, I would make that happen.
And look, I'm not going to be there in a performance capacity, but you better believe that I will be there front row and center. You may come on over and say hi to me if you want, but I'm just going to be glued to the ring and the stars that you guys have booked. This is huge for you guys. I'm very proud of you guys. I know this is something that's been a bucket list item for both 100%. You and Tyler. So congratulations, guys. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to knock a few back out in the hot sun. We're going to have a great time, man.
We will obviously be giving you more information about this show each week right here on Count It Out. We're going to start announcing matches starting next week. Wow. We have a tournament. I'm pretty sure I can peel the Band-Aid on this. We're going to be hosting an 8-wrestler tournament to crown the very first ever Counted Out Cup winner. Wow. So we will start talking about the people involved in that tournament next week. And then we'll I'm not going to give you any matches right now. We'll start next week. We'll probably give you at least one match per show leading up until August. I didn't even tell you the date. August 17th. That is a Sunday at Cowbell Brewery, part of Cowbell's amazing beer festival. It's on the East Lawn. $20 for adults, $10 for kids. Bring your own chairs or sit on the grass. I don't care what you do. I'd bring your own chair if you were smart, because you're going to be sitting watching these shows. That is my number 7. That's Cowbell Brewery in Blythe, Ontario. Now the cheating's done. Let's move on to some of the most historic places in this country. And you can't talk about history without talking about this next building. My number 6. We're going to talk about the Montreal Forum.
Something that you know, a place that you know very, very well. The only thing that I'm going to say about it is that you got to respect the history at the Forum for not just some incredible matches that were held there throughout some of the more mainstream moments of the WWF, one in particular I'm sure we're going to talk about. But, you know, international wrestling with the Rougeaus. Exactly. I mean, this was a place where Andre the Giant got one of his early starts in North America. Absolutely a hotbed for professional wrestling in Canada. Edouard Carpentier was from there. As I mentioned before, the Rougeaus, Dino Bravo.
Just to say, Mad Dog Vachon, our very good friend of the show, Paul Vachon, the late great Paul Vachon. This was the home of Grand Prix Wrestling, which was a hotbed of talent back in the day in Montreal. Of course, Lutte Internationale was also like you wanted to see great wrestling. This is where he went back in the day. My old man used to go, and that's where he broke his wrestling fan cherry. He used to go to the Forum back in the day, and he said Mad Dog used to scare the shit out of him when he was a kid.
I have a fun personal story about that as well. Another wrestling dad connection. My father used to live in Montreal, and when the WWF would roll into town, he would go and watch them at the Forum. And I remember when I went to visit him, he brought me a piece of paper with an autograph on it. And I said, "What's this?" And he said, "Well, that's Dino Bravo's autograph. I sat next to him at the Forum." and he showed me pictures, and it was Randy Savage versus Ric Flair in the main event, and I was so jealous of him, but more so because he got to sit next to Dino Bravo, which ironically enough was one of the first wrestlers that I ever saw on my television screen. I watched an episode of Superstars, and it was
Yeah.
Dino Bravo versus Hulk Hogan. So it was a really weird full circle moment for me,
Dino
even
was
though it didn't happen to me.
well, no, but I can see why that would be special to you. And Dino was a huge star in Quebec,
Absolutely.
especially in the Forum. He was over in the fucking Forum.
Could you talk about your experiences?
I've never been to the Forum.
Oh, really? I
No,
thought you had went there when you lived there.
No. By the time I lived there, wrestling didn't go to the Forum anymore.
Oh man.
Yeah, I didn't start living in Montreal until 2004, and the Forum just it wasn't a place anymore. Everything was going to the Bell Center.
Please excuse my ignorance, Buzz.
No, it's fine.
But was the Forum the site of Survivor Series 97, or had they moved to the more modern?
That was the Bell Center.
They had moved to the Bell Center by then. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Still iconic, man. What a great building. And I would have had to rake you over the coals if it wasn't on the list. So, man, that's a great choice, and I think that that's a good position for it as well.
Yeah, before the Bell Center.
I think any of our listeners in Quebec will probably be very upset that it's not higher on the list, but that is absolutely fair.
Before the Bell Center was the new home of the Montreal Canadiens. That is where the Montreal Forum, what the Montreal Forum was. It was the home of the Montreal Canadiens, and it was the home of wrestling. Everything kind of moved over to the Bell Center when I couldn't tell you the year. It was in the early or mid 1990s when that shift happened. But my father has a very similar story to your father's, except it wasn't Dino Bravo. It was Maurice the Rocket Richard.
Oh, wow!
That he was able to meet at the old Forum.
That's incredible. And just to show you how big of a star the Rocket is, I know who he is.
You know a hockey player.
That's right. And if I know a real sports guy, then they've got to be a big star.
Yeah. Well, we've already kind of touched on it. So we're just gonna move down the road. My number 5 is the Bell Center.
Okay, and I'm a little surprised by this one. So listen, I'm not like poo-pooing it. I'm not sold. But for fun, I want you to sell me on this.
The reason it's not the other way around for me, the Bell Center will always be synonymous with Survivor Series 1997.
Okay.
And that's not the only reason, but it will. But Survivor Series 1997 is both famous and infamous for what happened that night, and it happened to happen in that building. It's one of the most infamous and famous nights in professional wrestling history. We always go back to that night. Wrestling historians always go back to that night. If you want to talk about what's the most famous thing ever to happen in wrestling in Montreal, in Quebec, it's probably that night, and it happened in that building. Now, is that the only reason it's my number 5? No, not quite. The atmosphere in that building is contagious. It's probably the building I've seen the most wrestling in. Well, the most WWF or WWE wrestling, anyways. Excuse me. I've been to several Raws and SmackDowns and stuff like that, and house shows in that building. I was there for one of the best pops I've ever witnessed in wrestling history when Shawn Michaels did the fake bringing out Bret Hart, thing. That was the night where I had to admit that at least a small part of me was a Hulkamaniac, even though I swore to God for years I wasn't. When you're in that building, and there's just something about that building that makes you want to just get up and cheer for everything. So when Hulk Hogan's music hit, I couldn't help it.
Was that the building where John Cena had his open challenge and Sami Zayn answered?
I think you might be right about that. I'd have to go look back. I don't have that in my notes, but I don't think you're right.
If that's correct, that might be my favorite moment in the Bell Center.
I don't think you're wrong on that. But the Forum has the roots But when you want to talk about things that the fans still know, people still know the Bell Center for, especially for what happened in 1997.
I don't think you've completely sold me on it, but I'll say this: you make a very strong argument. There's a lot of people in Quebec listening to this that are now applauding you and saying, "Okay, very good. Yes, we were upset at you
Well,
before, but you've put two of our venues on your list, so well
well,
done."
I don't know if they're going to be happy with me going forward because what I have ranked higher than both the Forum and the Bell Center is a building that most Quebec fans wouldn't be caught dead in. And that's what we now know as the Scotiabank Place. Uh, it is formerly the Air Canada Centre right here in Toronto, Canada.
Okay.
And the reason it's my number 4 is because it is the home. It's the modern home of WWE and has had non-stop phenomenal moments every time they come. The takeovers that they've had here have been some of the best shows that WWE put on in those years. You know what I mean? Some of the greatest NXT matches have happened in that building. That's where the Fiend made his debut in one of the coolest moments in modern history. I find the ACC is not talked about enough for what, you know, when WWE comes to Canada over the last 15 years. Remember, from whatever year, from 2002 until 2025, when they came to Canada, that's where they went. They stopped going to the Skydome in 2000 after 2002. So from 2002 to 2025, every moment that happened in Toronto happened in that building. And I think for that reason alone, and think of all those moments, that's why it lands on my number 4.
Gotta tell you, I think this one's an even harder sell for me than the Bell Center. I don't know, man.
The fact that it's on the list at all, the fact that it's my number 5.
Definitely the fact that it's the number 5.
Or sorry,
Yeah,
number four.
number 4. Yeah. Okay, man, you got a chance to redeem yourself. I would like to think your top 3 are pretty solid,
I
but at
think
this
they are,
point,
yeah.
you have me guessing. I don't know, you've taken some big swings, much like the WWE earlier, but we'll see if
Okay.
they pay off as much. Let's go. I'm curious.
Well, we can't talk about history. You want to talk about the history of the Forum? This building, I think, is one of the only buildings that might trump the roots of professional wrestling in this country over the Forum. My number 3, we're going to Calgary for the Stampede Pavilion.
Okay. This definitely is a top 3. Honestly, I was kind of expecting this one to be a little higher,
Okay.
but again, top 3 is certainly respectable and agreeable, I would say. Yeah, I mean, like the home of Stampede, right? Like
The home of
Canadian
Stampede, the home of the
Canadian
Hearts.
institution,
Yeah.
like Canadian institution for sure. And it's one of these things where when you think of if you're a non-Canadian and you think of what an arena in Canada looks like, you're probably picturing the pavilion. And by
Right?
that I mean that it's old, it's wooden, uh it gives you the feeling that if something moved the wrong way, it might collapse, but it's built from such sturdy stuff that would never happen.
Right.
But it doesn't look that way. This is going to be a very, very strange comparison, and I apologize for anyone who may not be on the same wavelength I am here. Do you know the Canada's Wonderland roller coaster, the Great Canadian Minebuster?
Yes.
The Calgary Pavilion is like that. It looks
We're,
like you could blow it over.
yes.
But
And
it's
even when you're on the ride, you feel like this thing is going to fall apart underneath me at any time.
and that thing will be around after
Yes.
the nuclear holocaust with
Yeah.
the cockroaches and Keith Richards. Like you can't destroy
That
that
is
thing.
such a great analogy. I love that. I love that so much.
That's
the
the
perfect
pavilion.
comparison.
That's the pavilion, man. Like it is just much like everything to come out of Calgary. It's just made out of sturdier stuff.
You
And
just think of the legends that have gone through that building.
oh my god, dude.
Starting right at the top with Stu Hart and how he built the foundation of Canadian wrestling in that building. He really did.
And every big name in the history of the industry up to a certain point, walked through those doors and wrestled for Stampede, right?
Right.
And then, of course, I assume when you talk about big moments in big buildings, I mean, we're going to talk about Canadian Stampede, right?
Exactly.
Right.
One of the greatest WWE produced pay-per-views of the added, well, I guess it wasn't technically added here yet, but of the 1990s. It's one of my favorites. What a match, what a night, what a show. You talk to anybody, we've been lucky enough to talk to people who were in the building that night, and they say it's unlike anything that they've ever witnessed ever. You look at the people involved in that night, and they're still talking about it. If you ran into Stone Cold Steve Austin tomorrow and asked him what was like that night, I guarantee he, wrestlers sometimes run into memory problems after doing shots night after night after night after night after night. It all kind of blends and they forget nights. That's not a night I don't think any wrestler is gonna forget. Go back into our archives and check out some of the stories that TJ Wilson has told about that night, and he was just in the crowd.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, so I'll tell you, I got no problem with having that one up there as that at that level. It is absolutely one of the all-time greats, man, for sure. I would say, to put it as an equivalent, I would say that it is the equivalent to the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas. That's the American equivalent that I would give it.
I like that a lot. All right, getting to the top, my number 2. I don't know what I might catch some heat for this, but I think it deserves to be in this spot because it is the only Canadian building to host WrestleMania, not once, but twice. And we're going to the Skydome.
Yeah, I figured this would be in the top 3 as well, and I can't disagree with it. Not only because of those.
By the way, not only those 2 WrestleManias, but as we were witness to, one of the biggest moments in the history of the company, especially modern history of the company, it was the home of John Cena's heel turn. That's got to count for something.
Yeah, man. The Skydome is obviously ingrained in the history books for great big moments for the WWF, the leader in professional wrestling at the time that they were running. Yeah, man, Hogan and Warrior.
Well, that's
Hogan and Rock.
Yeah,
like those are 2 of the biggest matches in the company's history and in wrestling history.
Exactly.
Not to mention all of the shows that they did in between, right?
Right down that I've talked about this ad nauseum on this show before, but right down to their house shows. My very first WWE show ever was a house show in 1998 at that Skydome, and if you look at the card for that show, it was pay-per-view quality. Vince McMahon performing on that show. It was a fucking house show, and he was the special guest enforcer in the main event between Steve Austin and Triple H. That would never happen. That's how big wrestling was in 1998, though, and that's how important shows at the Skydome were. They always had to go all out. Excuse me, for the Skydome. The Skydome holds. If Tyler was here, he'd be poo-pooing on this. He's not a fan of shows at the Skydome. And I would agree with him with things like concerts. I don't like it for concerts because I find the acoustics to be all wrong at the Skydome. But I love it for wrestling. The feel in that building, there's something special about that building that you can almost, and I'm sure the same could be said about places like the Forum and the Pavilion. You can feel the history in that building. It's like when you walk in the back of your, like way in the back of your head, you can hear the Warriors music. You know what I mean? Like you can feel the things that have happened in that building.
I would argue that for me personally, I don't necessarily feel that so much as I feel the atmosphere of the place. Mm-hmm. And by that, I mean, it feels big. And it is big. It is a huge, huge building, but you feel it when you're in there and you're witnessing something. It feels bigger than maybe even it actually is because of the size and the scope of that building. So it does make things feel a bit more epic when you're there. I'll say this, I don't feel the same way when I'm in a place like Scotiabank Place,
Right.
the former Air Canada Center. I don't feel necessarily that way as when I do when I'm at Skydome, and
Right.
it makes a huge difference to me personally.
Okay. I that's very fair. Moving on to my number one. My number one, I don't think is going to be a secret to anybody. I don't think this is only one of the most important. It's the most important building in Canada when wrestling's involved. But I think it's also fair to say that it's one of the most important buildings in North America. I would put this on a top seven list of just venues in general. When it comes to the legacy, the importance, and the history of professional wrestling, a lot of it happened in Maple Leaf Gardens.
Yeah, this had to be your number one without question.
There was never a question.
And I know there's a lot of people there that will fight for Pavilion. Absolutely understand that.
Sure.
I really do. Um, but I do think when you look at just the straight up both history and importance of that building and the fact that its legacy is still continuing on to this day.
And
And yes, you can
yeah,
still make that argument for Calgary, absolutely. But and maybe it's just because of mediacy bias, the fact that, you know, it was featured more prominently with the product that was seen by more people in the WWF and things of that
mhm,
nature, but the history is still there, and it's still, I think, overwhelmingly in favor of Maple Leaf Gardens being number one.
yeah. And with you mentioned even today the legacy continues. I think Scotty Demore and his crew at Maple Leaf Pro have done nothing but just a phenomenal job at keeping the legacy of that building alive with that promotion. When I think, to my knowledge, they've only done one show there so far, but when they did go there, they didn't just brush it over as some building. They they said, this is the mecca of Canadian wrestling, and they treated it with the respect it deserved when they did the show there. I unfortunately couldn't be at that show, but I cannot wait to witness an MLP show there. A personal story: the one and only time I've ever been in that building for wrestling was with you, and because they now call it the Mattamy Center, both you and I were so uh, ignorant and oblivious to what the building was. I didn't know they had changed the name. I didn't know what to change the name to. So when you and I were walking down the street looking for this address called the Mattamy Center, and we looked up, and those historic letters are still on the side of the building saying Maple Leaf Gardens, and you grabbed my shoulder, mouth agape, silent, pointing to where we were heading. It's one of my favorite moments of my fandom. Just sitting there going, "Oh shit!" And I know it's not WWF. I know it's not what it used to be, but we're about to go see a Ring of Honor show, which is cool on its own, in the Garden,
And
and that
I
was one of the coolest moments for me.
that I think brings up a really good point, which is that it didn't matter what promotion we were watching
Mm-mm.
because that wasn't what made it special. I mean, it was a great card, but
It really was.
the reason we were excited wasn't because we're watching such and such a match, not because we're watching such and such a promotion. We got hyped because we were watching it at Maple Leaf Gardens.
Yeah,
And I think that really says everything you need to say about a venue like that is that when you get excited about just the fact that you're going to see something in a building and the building is what is making you excited, it speaks a lot.
I really wish that I remembered this a few weeks ago when we were talking to Justin Reeves on this show. But that very night in that building was the night we sat or stood during the 10 bell salute for Harley Race's.
Wow, that's right.
He passed away that weekend,
Yeah.
and which is, looking back, it was cool at the moment, but looking back now with you know forming this friendship that I have with Justin and everything, I wish I would have mentioned that to him, because that is a very cool thing to have, you and I to have sat through, in that building, honoring a legend like Harley Race.
Very serendipitous to be sure. Okay. So you've gone through the list. So I gotta ask about two arenas
Okay.
on here that I'm like,
So do you want to know the ones that I were going to be my number 7 and I couldn't decide? And
yeah,
and Tyler said no, they both suck.
okay, let's hear
One
it.
one
Let's see. Am
was,
I going to be more mad at you or more mad at Tyler now? Let's
I
see.
mean, it was my call in the end, and I said, and I ended up not putting either on. So in the end, I guess it's my call.
You get
So
all the heat.
you can give me all the heat, but one of them was the CNE.
Okay. Not one of the two I'm thinking of.
Okay,
Here's the thing. The CNE is cool if you're a like a local or I'd say Ontario person. And I'll
sure.
tell you, and this is why I say this. CNE's known for one big event, literally. Um,
I like that.
and don't get me wrong, that's a hell of an event to be known for. I would probably say in the top 50 cards of all time. Honestly, I think that show is one of the top 50 cards of all time. I love that event. It's so
Uh-huh.
good. But outside of that, you know, countless indie companies have come in there and done wrestling tournaments and summer what's that, residencies during that, which is very cool and unique. But at the end of the day, it's I don't know, it's just fairgrounds and they're not like known. It's not like a thing where like, oh, it's not like the Nashville Fairgrounds, which will forever be known as like this was the TNA Asylum. It's just like, yeah, it's the fairgrounds. They do wrestling here every year. Is it the same company every year? Well, no. Is it like they're a big tournament? Sometimes. I don't know. It's just wrestling. So, yeah, it's a great spot for wrestling, but I don't know. To me, outside of the big event, I don't see much of it being list
Okay.
worthy, in my opinion. I don't think it's stupid, but I wouldn't have put it on the list. So
The
I'll
other
back you on that. I'll back you on that.
the other one was Cops Coliseum.
Now this one we're gonna fight over because
And
Cops
okay,
Coliseum should have been on that list.
let's talk about this. Outside of the Royal Rumble, why are we talking about Cops Coliseum?
Because Cops Coliseum, much like another one that I was hoping you'd say, was like a mainstay for WWF TV tapings. So much of their 80s material was live from Cops Coliseum, you know?
Mhm.
I don't know, man. I just feel like it was such a staple. When it comes to like staples of Canadian wrestling buildings, that is a building that has seen so much history, at least from a WWF perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I'd have to like I would personally put
I gave it a lot of thought. See, you know what? I changed my mind. You can give the heat to back to Tyler. If it wasn't
yeah,
for Tyler,
Tyler,
it probably would have been my number 7.
Cops Coliseum is not stupid. Mike Bissett and I will fight you on this, and Iron Mike Sharp will fight you on this.
Hey, Iron Mike Sharp didn't even make last week's Mike list, so he's
Also a
already got heat.
disappointment.
He's already got heat.
Also a point of contention.
May I guess the other one that you think I'm missing?
Sure.
Is it the Rico?
No, it
Okay.
isn't. Although the Rico is a cool building. The other one want to talk about is the Forum in Halifax.
Okay, that's on my the Halifax Forum is definitely on my honorable mention list.
Another one where the WWF would constantly visit throughout the years and was kind of like the big hub, but also like a home for Grand Prix wrestling with Emile Dupree.
Yeah.
So to me, I feel like, you know, got to represent the East Coast as well. Nothing against all the West Coast fam out there in Vancouver way, but I just think the Halifax Forum has a bit more history. So yeah, I would absolutely put both Cops and the forum, the Halifax forum, on my personal list.
Well, we can. You mentioned our friends on the West Coast, because we can jump over there in my honorable mentions. I did have Pacific Coliseum in Vancouver on my list, or on my honorable mentions.
Sure.
At the Winnipeg Arena.
Yeah.
Was an honorable mention. And going back to Quebec, the Verdun Arena had or the Verdun Auditorium, I think it was actually called,
Sure.
had a lot of history in it as well.
Absolutely. I would absolutely say that those are very notable arenas. I think though they are rightfully honorable mentions, but but they're great. They've got a lot of history there as well.
I'm something just popped up on my phone, and I believe you can tell me if I'm wrong. This changes my entire list if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Now, I stated one of the reasons the ACC was so. No, no, no. We were. That's wrong. 100% wrong. I'm reading right now that Takeover 2016 and Takeover 2019 happened at the Rico. But we were
No.
at Takeover 19, and that
They
was
were
at
in
the
the
ACC.
ACC.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely were in the
my list
ACC.
stands. Okay, my list stands.
Yeah.
All right.
It's shaky, but it stands.
I mean, the Rico has really become the new home, the Canadian home of AEW, if anything else. AEW has done all their dynamites and collisions that they've done here at the Rico.
Very good venue.
Yeah.
Very good venue. You got like 20, 30 years of history to go before you catch up to a lot of these places on the list, though, as far as I'm concerned.
It's not even the Rico anymore. We keep calling that. I think it's the Coca-Cola Center now.
Some of these places will always, it's always going to be what you grew up. It's always Skydome.
It's always Skydome.
It's always going to be Skydome.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Sorry, Rogers. It's always going to be Skydome.
I still call the ACC the ACC. Not that I care either way, to be honest, but yeah.
So, quick question. Are there any venues that you know would never make this list, but you still have very fond memories of when it comes to wrestling?
No, because I haven't been to a lot of big stadiums that or venues that we haven't talked about.
But they don't have to be big venues. Like, for example,
when I think of all the wrestling, the only venue that I don't think we've talked about that I've been in, unless you're talking about little dinky fucking
anything. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Anything. This is what I'm saying. Like, because I have very special. So, for example, like if I was going to give you an example from my personal experience, literally down the road, Memorial Gardens in North Bay holds an incredibly special place in my heart.
Been to a lot of Blood, Sweat, and Ear show at Memorial Gardens.
So that was the site of my first ever WWF house show. My first ever WWF show. I saw Brett wrestle Owen in the main event that night. Of course, years later, I can appreciate how incredibly special that was. Back then, I was just excited about it. I almost threw up when the 1-2-3 Kid came out. He was the first match of the night, but I was just so damned excited to be at a WWF show live that like I almost puked from excitement. Like I
hope to God, that's my new goal on the show, is to get you the opportunity to tell that to Sean Waltman. I want Waltman on this show so bad just so you can tell him that he made you vomit.
Okay, can I do a fun sidebar with this?
Mm-hmm.
I might have gotten to that point one day with Sean Waltman had Scott D'Amore not come over and chastised me, rightfully so, I might add. So, fun story for those who aren't familiar with my history. I lived in Windsor for many years, and when I lived in Windsor, I would often volunteer for Border City wrestling shows. Sure. And at one particular show, Sean Waltman was a special guest, and myself and another friend, I want to say it was Jeff DeHaan, but it might have been somebody else, were tasked with essentially being Sean Waltman's personal assistant, his gopher, whatever he needed at the table, I was there. And like, as soon as he got there, it was all just questions for him about like, oh, how did you like tagging with this guy? And what did this mean? And blah, blah. And clearly we must have gotten somebody's attention, or maybe even Scott's directly, because Scott basically came over and, to paraphrase here, saying, stop being a bunch of fucking marks and do your job. And again, rightfully so. I was 100% marking out, which I didn't normally do, but I guess because he almost made me throw up in the garden, I was like, it's Sean Waltman.
Yeah.
So that would be a joy for me to be able to tell Sean Waltman. Listen, I didn't get to tell you this back when I was 18.
The two guys now I need to, I will definitely bring you on if we ever get them on, are now X-Pac and Maven. Like just for you to tell those stories to those people. I want it so badly. You asked me about venues that I hold near my heart. They would never make a list, obviously, but no, I'll start with the gym in Englehart High School, where I saw my very first wrestling show. And sidebar, met you for the first time.
Also, sidebar, where you wrestled many times.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. That's where my backyard.
You wrestled in the same venue as Bushwhacker Butch and Luke.
I sure as hell did.
You remember that?
my backyard fed would put on shows for the school in that very gym and cafeteria and soccer field. We put on a halftime show for the end of year soccer game. Yeah, that my school was really
Now the question is,
cool when it came to shit like that.
The question is, did you outdraw Christian Cage? That's the question.
Yes, because
there you go.
Because 100% yes. There was probably 50 people in that crowd for fucking ICW. The entire school was forced to be there for the assembly that I wrestled in. So now my school only had about 250 to 300 people in it. It was a tiny school, but that's still 3 times at least as much people as Christian Cage drew, which to this day I guarantee would be blamed on me by Ike Shaw, the promoter, because I remember him. He had heat with us because he didn't feel like we did our jobs promoting the show.
I mean, if
we should have.
If you drew 50 people, I'd say he was right on that. As opposed to your backyard show where they were hanging from the rafters, baby.
So yeah, that show, watching wrestling in that gym, which is the first and probably only time wrestling's ever been in that gym. That was a special night for me.
Until now, I also have an announcement to make. No, I'm kidding.
That would be fucking awesome, dude. If you were telling me that you were doing Rock Solid and no, listen, because one of my dreams is I do want to continue putting on shows. But one of my biggest dreams is to put on a benefit show in the name of James Decker. And the two places I can there's only 2 places I could think to do it that would make sense to do it. One would be North Bay, one would be Englehart. So who knows? Maybe there'll be wrestling in that gym one more day in the name of James.
Well, I can say
you never know.
You're just about to cross off the one promoter dream off the bucket list, man. Nothing say you can't do another one.
Well, that's definitely on my list of things that I really want to do in my life. It's just something to do for James. I know it's something he would love to do.
Cross promotion. Can we do the Hogan? Can we do the Hogan Macho through the camera here? Help me out. Can we do this? Which hand? I don't know which. What do I do with my hands?
The other building, 41 Ferris Lane in Barrie, Ontario, where Barrie Wrestling hosts their show once a month. It's the gym of a church, and let me tell you, in Barrie, it is holy ground, because that is where Sean Gibson and his crew puts on. They put their heart and their soul into these shows every single month. And I love being part of the Barrie Wrestling family, and I love that building. I love being in that building because they have such a rabid fan base. They have such a dedicated fan base that are there every single month, and I love it. I love being in that building. I love being around those people. So that's the other venue I would definitely mention.
Well, there you go, big and small. I think we got them all.
Absolutely. Yeah, the list isn't. Maybe the list isn't perfect, and I know I'm going to catch some heat from my partner.
You know, looking at it, it looks kind of old and rickety, like an old roller coaster, or maybe the Calgary Pavilion.
So my list is the Calgary Pavilion,
but it's still pretty sturdy.
You know what? That whole analogy could be even used to, like, you use that to describe Terry Funk.
Well, I was about to say, you could probably use to describe both of us at this age in our life.
You're not wrong. Not wrong at all.
Rickety, old. Most of the parts don't work now, but hey, we're still standing.
But we're still standing,
and we outdrew Christian Cage in 1998.
Okay, before we close this out, let's just look back at that for a second. What a cool show to look back on now and say that we were there. I mean, you have Christian Cage and the man who would, known as Test later in his career, I believe Martin Kane he was going by
at that time.
Was that it? Yeah. Andrew Martin, of course. They tagged up against the Bushwhackers, for Christ's sake. You had Joey Legend in his early career. They're against a dude named Royal Black, I want to say.
It was.
You have Scotty D'Amore before he was Scotty D'Amore, when he was still a wrestler, up against, I want to say it was Brian Ireland.
Right. Yeah.
Am I right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian Ireland also won the Battle Royal that night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck. I feel like I'm forgetting something. But those are the matches I remember. And you look and see the people that you saw that night and oh no, fucking the Muay Thai kid. Tyson Dukes was on that show with no eyebrows. Do you remember that?
I don't. I don't remember.
I
that
was
at
lucky
all.
enough. If you go way back, it's a horrible show, but if you go way back in the first season of the show, we interviewed Tyson about we interviewed Tyson Dukes on the show, and I asked him about the Muay Thai kid, and I asked him about his time in ICW, and unfortunately, this is our early stages of this show, so the connection between we were doing it on the phone, and he was in a place with really shitty reception. So the interview is not the greatest in the world. It's very, very crackly, but he tells some cool stories about having to shave his eyebrows and do that Mai Tai kid character. And he tells some great stories about the very interesting Ike Shaw and a man who wasn't on our show, I believe, but a man who was involved in ICW was Waldo Von Erich. And he tells some really cool stories about traveling with Waldo Von Erich.
As opposed to your shows now, in which my internet works, but everybody's listening goes, God, I wish it will just drop so we can stop talking. It's been 3 hours. This has been a whole episode of SmackDown.
That only happens when Jeremy Prophet's on the show. All right, my friends. Thank you so much for joining us on this Canada Day issue of the Bill Apter Seal of Approved, counted out with Mike and Tyler. Once again, Adam, always a pleasure to have you aboard. Thank you for helping us out this week. And until next time, my friends, make sure to check out Rock Solid on all their social media platforms. And we'll see you here next week. You've been counted out.
Cheers.